So, who's presenting the budget?
Okay.
Is there going to be a visual component to this? Oh. Councilors, we may actually be starting whenever you're ready, Mayor Ness. It's
all right.
Your time.
Thank you, President Hartman and councilors. I'm very pleased to present to you tonight the 2013 general fund budget. There are many people to thank in putting together a budget of this scope. Certainly Chief Administrative Officer Dave Montgomery, our interim CFO Peg Spihar, Sherry Bushman from the Budget Office, and our department directors have been working very diligently over the recent months and over the summer to bring you this balanced budget. I think it's also important to recognize and thank city employees who have contributed so much to achieving the budget stability that we'll be talking about tonight. Their commitment to providing quality services despite having fewer coworkers and fewer resources, and their commitment to cost-saving measures, energy savings, fuel reduction savings, even reducing the number of photocopies within City Hall all contribute to creating a more stable budget. And, of course, working cooperatively to become a more lean and efficient organization. And the discussion that we just had, about business development, and clearly is a reflection of the type of decisions that department directors have had to make over the last 5 years, and really leaning and having fewer staff than, quite frankly, we would like to have. Quite frankly, what would provide a higher level of service to the public, and yet we also have to balance that against the cost of providing city services in a time of diminishing resources, whether it's LGA or pilot from our gas utility or earnings on investment because we can only achieve a 1% return on our dollars. Those are the sort of decisions that are being faced by these directors every budget year. So while this process has been significantly less difficult than in recent years, we did face significant challenges as we began to craft the 2013 budget. We are facing a $1.7 million increase in our health care costs, both to active employees and retirees. There is a $620,000 increase for modest wage increases for our employees that have gone 2 years without any increases. There is $300,000 in the reduction on earnings on investment and a $300,000 reduction in our payment in lieu of taxes because we've had warm winters and the price of natural gas has declined. So we began the summer facing about a $3 million deficit for an already lean organization. But as we have done in the past, we began to look for creative and sustainable solutions, including a reduction of 14 FTEs in the general fund, including elimination of 6 positions, the use of a Medicare supplement program that we anticipate will save the city $800,000, and we continue to look for ways to lean our operations and lessen our reliance on general fund revenues of property taxes and local government aid. At the same time, we're able to present you a budget that proposes a 1.6% increase in the city's 22% of the property tax bill. That translates to a $7 increase to the average tax bill for the entire year. Councilors, this 1.6% increase is the lowest proposed increase in 12 years. The $73.7 million budget that will be presented is $1 million less than the 2012 approved budget and represents the 5th consecutive year that the general fund has grown smaller. It is now $7.2 million less than it was in 2008. This budget reflects a hard-earned stability. For many years, the city was on a budgetary roller coaster that put tremendous pressure on staff, on city councilors, and on our taxpayers. So, in essence, no news is a good news budget. There aren't any new initiatives, no exciting new projects, no increases in staff or an expansion of services. But what we have been able to accomplish in this budget is retaining the level and quality of service that our citizens have come to expect. I have kind of an informal goal that reflects my personality, and that's to make city government boring again. And the idea is that if we're doing our jobs, if we're being respectful of one another, if we're focusing on our responsibility of delivering good services, then there really isn't a need in city government for excitement, drama, and ugly politics. If we're doing our job well, city government should be seen as pretty boring. And given the year that we've had thus far, I hope that you'll all appreciate how dull this budget is. While the end result is not exciting, I don't want to underappreciate the efforts that it took to balance this budget. And as I mentioned, there was a $3 million deficit that had to be addressed in large part because of the increase in our costs, especially for employees and retirees. Between health care and the wage increases, a $2.3 million increase in costs, not reflecting any expansion in the number of employees, as well as some key reductions in revenue. So over the coming months, you'll have the opportunity to work directly with our department directors to learn more about the impacts of this budget. The further reduction in FTEs will have an impact, especially in light of the other staff cuts over the past 5 years, but I believe that there will be very little impact on the quality of services to the public. A few of the highlights again, $800,000 in anticipated cost savings from the use of the Medicare supplement plan, a significant cost savings from the reduction in energy consumption and materials such as salt. Both with the improvements that we've made to our facilities, like new windows, we've seen a substantial decrease in the cost of heating City Hall and other city buildings. Also, the use of our GPS system, I think, is having an impact in reducing our fuel consumption and our salt consumption. So those reforms that we've put in place over the past few years are having a payback in reducing our costs of operations. And we've also had a follow-through on the cost savings that were implemented in 2012. And so you may not see them reflected as a change in this budget. They are cost savings that we did achieve in the past year and that we will continue to be committed to in the coming year. For example, the bridge operators, which I think has proven a success and been able to reduce the cost of providing services to the public without impacting the level of service. So the challenges that we face going forward, and I think the struggles, the challenges that we have faced in this budget are a reflection of what we will continue to face even more so into the future. The increasing cost of health care is a tremendous burden on the city of Duluth. And I think it's more so, we have to be honest, because in addition to the active employees that we are providing that coverage to right now, we are also providing that coverage to over 1,000 retirees and their dependents. And so as we see a 15% increase in our premium costs to provide health care to those on the city plan, that puts tremendous pressure on the city of Duluth and our general fund budget. The cuts and efficiencies that we've put in place over the past 5 years take a lot of effort to maintain. It is one thing to really stress fuel reduction and anti-idling policies and the reduction in the use of salt. But those take a continued commitment to continue to see those cost savings year after year after year, and it's too easy to kind of let things slide and see those costs increase. So we need to maintain our vigilance on those fronts. We'll also see wage increases. And again, for 2 years, we asked our employees to go without any wage increases. We know that that's not a fair or sustainable way to run an operation in the long term. And so we are going to see wage increases, and there will be budgetary pressure in light of that. We're also seeing across the country the impact of the cost of underfunded pensions at the state level, and asking local units of government to contribute more to address those shortfalls. And the same dynamics that we see in other states are true here in the state of Minnesota. Thankfully, they're not quite as bad as, for example, the state of California, but they are significant, and that will be a pressure facing us in the years to come. Street improvement is a challenge, and we all recognize that. The council has recognized that by making a priority, and I both welcome and support councilors' efforts to develop new approach for our street improvement program, because clearly the impact of the Fond du Lac ban withholding their funds from the City of Duluth and our ongoing legal battle is putting a tremendous strain on the City of Duluth's ability to fix our streets. And we can't, while we'll continue our focus on maintaining the streets, our crack sealing and our pothole patching, we won't be able to improve the streets to the level that we have in recent years, because we don't have that very important revenue source coming in. And there's also challenges to continue to modernize this organization. We ask our staff to be reform-minded, to be champions for change, to see opportunities to bring forward new ways of doing business that will create long-term efficiencies and a better organization that is more efficient for the taxpayers and still provides a good level of service. However, I think what we've seen is those efforts to bring reform forward have taken a toll on staff. They have, in some cases, become political targets themselves. And the message that we sometimes hear is that because we're city government, we should accept inefficiency. We should kind of take heed to more narrow self-interest or needless red tape. And I think, councilors, from my perspective, if we are to sustain an approach to our budget that's sustainable and that we're able to provide quality service to the public, that dynamic needs to change, and we need to support those staff members who are reform-minded and willing to put their necks out to advocate for positive change. Councilors, I thank you and previous councilors for the reforms that we've been able to implement. Over the past 5 years, we've asked the council to make tough decisions and often politically unpopular decisions. But it's been the right thing to do, and the results speak for themselves. This budget is a reflection of the hard-earned stability. There have been no silver bullets, there's been no magic solution, just an ongoing commitment to find the balance between the quality services that residents expect and the cost to the taxpayers to pay for those services. And the success of those efforts can best be measured by the opinions of the residents themselves. And although we continue to look for efficiencies, cuts to staff, and in some cases elimination of programs, the public is increasingly supportive of the services that we provide. And actually, at this time, I'm going to ask Peg to also pass out the budget, and we'll go over those. But in the meantime, I'll go over some of the results of the survey that recently was completed. And these are the percentage increase of residents saying that Duluth is good or excellent in these following areas. The cleanliness of Duluth is up 15%. 15% of residents are now, there's been an increase by 15% of residents saying that Duluth is good or excellent in the cleanliness. Street repair is up 15% from 2 to 17%. Library services are up 22%. The services that, the overall measure of services provided by the city is up 18% from 2009. And at 68%, it's between 15 and 25% higher than any other level of government. And my favorite, the overall direction that the city of Duluth is taking is up by 23%. The public recognizes the importance of the council's role in these changes in making this happen, and so 69% of our residents are saying that the council is doing a good job. They strongly or somewhat approve of the job that the council is doing. So with that, we'll take a quick high-level review of the budget, and as you know, councilors, there'll be a lot of opportunity in the coming months for you to delve in deeper with department heads to talk about the impacts of this budget. So if you turn to the page with the pie graph at the bottom, this is our levy sheet. You'll actually notice, councilors, that for general operations, there is a $322,000 decline in the levy support for general operations. There's a small increase from captured new growth of $106,000. And so the overall change in the levy for general operations is actually down 1.15%. You will see an increase in the debt service, and this, councilors, is primarily due to the investment that we're making in MIS, in our IT infrastructure. That has been woefully out of date, making us a less efficient organization. Unfortunately, we've delayed those purchases for too long, and now we're having to see a massive influx. But this will make us a more modern and efficient organization.
Sorry to interrupt you, but just as a reminder, we generally give about 15 minutes as a presentation, the last 15 minutes to allow Q&A, and it is the budget, so it would, if possible.
Well,
I don't know if you plan to go for the next 15
it
minutes.
is
or the next
the
10.
entire budget for the 2013 year, so I will move through the rest of it very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
As you'll see, councilors, there is the average impact to the average homestead is $7 for the coming year. So for the average home valued at $158,000, they'll be paying $7 more for their city services. And as you'll see again, the breakdown of where the average property tax dollar goes, 22 cents of that dollar goes to the city. The next two pages are kind of, I won't go into it since we don't have the time, but you'll be able to see in greater level of detail the various budget lines. And while there's only a $1 million decline in the overall budget, you'll see that there are several area categories that went up, several that went down. So there's a lot of movement that results in an overall net reduction of $1 million to the bottom line. Let's see here. The next page you'll see is an overall summary of the staffing. You'll see that there is an overall reduction of 14. However, some of those are transfers. For example, we're moving the parking fund off of general fund, and so there are 6 FTEs, parking monitors, that will go to the parking fund. And I guess that will be about it. We'll go into further details later.
Thank you, Mayor Ness. So I guess I'll open this up to councilor questions. Go ahead, Councilor Fosley.
Thank you, President Hartman, and this is thank you for being transparent and bringing your budget early like this. But I don't want to really put you on the spot here, and I know you're not going to probably have the answer to my question, but before the casino contract, the city streets were okay. What did we do to fund them prior to that money? And I know you probably can't answer it. You weren't, but if someone could maybe look back and find out what they did and where that money is used now.
Yeah. Councilor Fosley, since 1994 or around that time, the city committed to a debt-focused street program. And so every year of the street improvement, we would issue $6 million of debt. And then it would be paid off by a combination of several different sources, including capturing all new growth in property taxes dedicated to paying off the debt. Also capturing the interest, all the interest from the CIT that would then be dedicated to paying off the debt, and then assessments. And so those were the sources. But it was a debt-based program. And so 3 or 4 years ago, we had $40–50 million worth of street improvement debt on our books. And in some cases, we were paying 5 or 6% interest on that debt, while our CIT fund was returning 1 or 2%. So we had a huge negative arbitrage problem. Now, we decided at that time, and with the council's support at that time, to say, let's use those, instead of having this big target with these, the trust fund on our back, let's use those dollars to reduce our amount of debt, reduce the interest that we have to pay. Personally, I prefer a pay-as-you-go system rather than a debt-pay system, but you need the revenue to do a pay-as-you-go system, and because the casino is, or the band is not making those payments to us, we have no revenue source right now.
Thank you, Councilor Fauci. Go ahead, Councilor Boyle, and then Councilor Larson.
Thank you, President Hartman. Mayor Ness, just looking back at, it looks like we're going to be losing around 15 jobs in the coming year. And looking at it, looks like the 2 big departments that are going to take a hit is 1, the executive, and 2, looks like police. And I know as a council, that's always something we've always talked to you about is when we have these losses, we want to see it parallel sometimes. So it's refreshing to see that side of things. Now, with the police, is it, are these retirement spots that we're just not filling, or?
No,
could you-
the sworn FTEs are actually the same as they were last year, about 152, 150, 150. The reduction on the police side is two sources. One are the parking meter monitors that have been in the police budget, and now they'll be in the parking fund. And the second is, I think there are 2 radio shop operators that will be transferred to the maintenance division.
Thank you, Councilor Boyle. So I kind of a lot, excuse me, I'll go to Councilor Larson. Go ahead, Councilor Larson.
Yeah, my question was kind of in the same. I was really curious about the difference in MIS staffing last year compared to this year, and you must have a reason for that.
Thank you very much, Councilor Larson. There is, and I wish I should have went through this very quickly, but you'll see both in MIS as well as in HR. HR had been under legislative and executive, so that's where you see a steep decline from 2012 to 2013. That's our HR department, and so that has been moved into public administration as well as MIS, and so those will both be under our new public administration director.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ness and Councilor Larson. Go ahead, Councilor Stauber.
President Hartman, thank you. Mayor, thank you. The Public Safety Fund, that's kind of new to me. I see you're moving 6 people into that.
Yeah, Councilor Stauber, that actually is mislabeled on here, and I just caught that kind of on the way in. We finished this about a couple of hours ago. The fund is actually a grant fund, so it's a public safety grant fund, and the idea here, councilors, is that we are applying for a SAFER grant right now, and we are asking for 6 additional positions that would be fully funded. If we receive those dollars, it'll go through the grant fund and we'll hire those, but it is dependent, this budget is dependent on us getting those SAFER grant dollars to commit to hiring those 6 firefighters. So I didn't want to put in, we're going to hire 6 more firefighters into the general fund dependent upon grants. I would rather say those positions are dependent upon getting the grant.
Thank you, Councilor Stauber. Mayor Ness, go ahead. Councilor Kraus, just let councilors know we have about 6 minutes. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, President Hartman. The 2 firefighter grant positions we talked about the other day, would that fall into this category then that we had at the agenda session, or are they in a different place than this? At consent agenda, we had the 2-year grants. Would that be part
Yes,
of these?
President
or-
Hartman, Councilor Kraus, that's what we're talking about, is those are the SAFER grant positions, and they'd be in here.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery and Councilor Kraus. I guess I will, just for councilor's reference, page 5 is a pretty good page if you want to see, you know, where the employees move back and forth from, or where they've been added or subtracted. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a fairly accurate narrative. Is that fair to say?
I'm sorry?
Is that a
Actually,
fair-
the next page is a better summary of where the personnel are moving. So you can see then at the bottom, there's positions transferred to other funds at 7.8, and those are largely the parking meter monitors. And then the rest of it is a pretty good indication by division of where folks are moving.
So, sorry, as a kind of a follow-up to that, so is that, so how many staff members will not be here anymore, or that position was just allowed to retire, or?
It's a little over six positions, of positions that were eliminated, that were in the last budget, a net of 6.
Okay. And then my other question, sorry, move to page 7. This is just a basic explanation. Under revenues, under license and fines, we've went about $800,000 down from 2010, or almost $1 million from last year. What's that?
President Hartman, councilors, that is the parking-related fines that are moving into the parking fund. So we moved the revenue and the parking meter costs. So we sort of moved both the revenue and the costs over into the parking fund for parking-related items.
And look, what was the additional there, Mayor Ness?
My understanding was that maybe that's probably a level of detail that Gordon can get into in
Okay,
his
yeah.
presentation.
And then my last question on here is just under earnings on investments. Doesn't look like that's going well under the budgeted projection.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well,
Is
again,
that
it's,
just the
you know,
market, or
we are
is-
very limited on what we can, on how we can invest our dollars. And given the bond market, given the environment that we're in, we're getting less than 1% return on those. Now, it's also a reflection of our strategy to reduce the debt that we're carrying, to avoid that negative arbitrage, paying 5-6%, earning 1 or 2%. And so as the funds that we have set aside also are declining, we're not making as much return on that as well.
And then my last question, just sorry, I'm going to probably have more last questions, but I had a conversation about this earlier today, so I think this would be interesting for the full council. Of our general fund, about how much of that is paying health insurance? Benefits and so forth.
Yeah, 16, 18 million?
Probably about $16 million between actives and retirees,
So probably about a fifth of our total general fund is just paying benefits.
Yeah.
the 20%.
And I think when I... 19
I'm
million?
sorry, I overstated it, 19%.
I think when I was first on the council, it was somewhere around 5 or 6 million.
Wow.
That's the economics that we're dealing with, and everything else gets squeezed. And so when we're talking about business development and how many business developers they had in the 80s and early 90s, they were also only paying $4 or $5 million in healthcare costs.
And how much did health insurance increase just from last year to this year?
15%.
Just under $2 million. I mean, if you think about it, President Hartman and councilors, if you think beyond the general fund and both the public utilities and the general fund, we have between 18 and $20 million of healthcare costs. So we have a pool of about $20 million. So if you apply whatever health inflation you like to that number, do you think it's only 5%? That's $1 million a year. Is it 10%? You know, that's $2 million a year. You can see it ratchets up dramatically with our ongoing healthcare inflation costs. So it's about a $20 million pool that's inflating every year, on average, about 10% or higher.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Mayor Ness, go ahead. Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, President Hartman. Just a clarification on the increase from health insurance costs from last year to this year. Did I hear 15%?
15%, yeah, 15%.
Thank you. Ouch.
We have 1 minute to go, but any other councilor questions? Thank you, Mayor Ness, for your presentation, and Mr. Montgomery as well.
Thank you very
thank you
much.
to staff who've worked clearly very hard on this. I'm sure we'll have more questions as the council as this continues. So thank you. This will be the end of our first committee of the whole meeting. We'll have half a minute to go.